This is Jaelen Correa, and
Joshua Morales.
I'm here with Arthur Tim Herk at the Athol Senior Center in Athol, Massachusetts. We're here to record an oral history interview. Do I have your permission to record?
You do.
Thank you.
With the topic of growing up in Athol, where and when were you born?
I was born in Athol, Massachusetts in October 21st, 1944, at the old Lying-In Hospital, which is no longer here. It was over by where McDonald's is now. I was one of the last ones born in that hospital.
Do you have anything about your family background, about your father or your mother?
Yes, my father was born in Finland. Came over when he was 3 years old. His father was already here. Came over with his brother Julius. Their mother brought him over, and she died less than 90 days after they got here. And they brought him over especially with the mother to be with the father who's over here working. They knew she was dying, so he wanted to bring them two boys to America. And they came through Ellis Island in 1906 when he was 3 years old. And my mother she was born in Athol, grew up in Athol. She was of French-Canadian descent with English. And most of her parents came from upstate New York.
Where did your dad end up working in?
He worked in a metal factory in Orange, Massachusetts. Before that, he was a logger for a number of years, worked in the woods. My mom was a stay-at-home housewife, as most were those days.
All right. Do you remember anything about your grandfather or grandmother?
I was one of the unfortunate ones who all my grandparents were gone before I can remember. I had one grandfather I saw when I was 5. I think I saw him once, and it was about a couple of weeks before he passed. But other than that, I was the youngest one in the family, so I never got to see it. I never had any grandparents.
Does your family have any memories about Finland that you know of?
No, they came over when my father was too young, but 5 or 6 years after he passed, my two sisters and myself and my brother-in-law went over to Finland where he was born, and I met with the relatives who were extremely happy because when they left in 1906, they were trying to do the family tree, and all they had written down was gone to America, and they never heard from anybody from 1906 to about 1990 something, and they were happy. They invited us over, and we went over to see the family. And since then, some of the relatives, one of their daughters came over and went to school in Mahar for a year, and the parents came over, so we've been corresponding since.
Did you have any brothers or siblings growing up?
I had 2 brothers and 3 sisters. The oldest one was Elaine, she's passed. Joyce, my sister Joyce, has passed. My brother William has passed. My sister Nan is still alive, and myself. There was 6 of us, and there's only 2 of us left.
How was it like growing up with 5 other siblings?
Well, it was very nice as far as my sisters, because they treated me great. As usual, the 2 boys, I was the youngest. I got picked on all the time until I got bigger than them, and then that changed. But it was pretty nice. We have a very close family.
Do you have any memories about them growing up?
Oh, I think there was memories of all the common memories back in those days. Every family probably had. Every weekend, even after we got married and everything, growing up, you went back to see your parents. You know, it's not like today. Some kids don't go see their parents for months. Every weekend, we all lived close enough. We always went home on Saturday or Sunday to see the folks and help out and this stuff, you know. And we used to. Growing up, we deer hunted together, we fished with my brothers, everything we all did together. Played softball or baseball together, you know, it was a family unit, we all got along extremely well.
Who was in your house growing up?
I had an uncle who, my mother's brother, that he was kind of a vagabond. He'd traveled all over, he never got married. He'd travel all over, and every 2-3 years he'd show up for a while, you know. And he'd always bring all his kids gifts, so we always kind of liked to see him come back. But back in those days, there was not much other company come into the house. You know, it was just a family, and you got along with the family next door, and that was it.
I think your uncle brought you gifts, right?
Oh, he used to be he had a knack of whittling, and he'd make all kinds of toys out of wood and everything and give them to us. And of course, back then we didn't get many toys, so we'd like to see him come because the wood toys that we cherished them and played with them for quite a while. But that was about the extent of it, you know. He used to make. You could take in the springtime when the popple trees are growing. In the spring when they're growing new shoots and stuff, you take a branch, you can cut it off, cut the bark, you can twist the bark off, take it off, make a V shape, cut it, and you can make a whistle out of it. And we used to think those were the neatest things because he'd always make us those, and they sounded just like a regular big whistle, and yet you could do it out of just a piece of a tree, you know. And he was pretty neat. He'd take a peach stone when he was down in Florida, and he'd carve a monkey inside of it with a tail and everything in fine detail. It was quite a knack. He had special knives to do it, and he was quite talented at carving stuff. And he used to sell some of it. That's how he made some money and stuff, but he was quite talented. He just traveled and sold things like that. He never really held down a job for much, and just never got married, had family, but he was just on the road.
How was your family involved in the community when you were growing up?
Probably like most families around us, not very much, because we lived out, had no transportation, and besides church and this stuff, there wasn't Old Home Day, in the old towns, Old Home Day, everybody got together for a day with games and stuff. But there really wasn't much to be involved in the town because it was a small town and you just didn't get to town much, you know, didn't have any way to get there. And believe me, in those days, there wasn't much going on in those small towns when there's only 500 or 600 people in the town. There's no movie theaters, there's none of this stuff, so you just didn't go, you stayed home.
How was that like, going to church?
It was nice. It was a social gathering because a lot of times you saw your friends maybe at church and that stuff, but it was probably 15, 20, 25 people there, small congregation, this stuff, you know. Again, growing up in small towns, there's not many people there. So, we didn't have, usually you don't have your own pastor, they rotating or visiting pastors because small churches, they couldn't afford to hire one full time, so it changed often, but.
Were you really into church?
Definitely believe, but they didn't, like I said, we didn't get in a choir and all this stuff. I don't even think they had a choir in that small church, but it wasn't much you could really get into. You know, you went to church on Sunday, and after that, it was like nothing else going on until the next Sunday, you know.
So what did you end up doing when you were at home?
Well, most of it was at home in the summer. You worked in the garden. You had to do 2-3 hours a day in the garden, mow the lawns, and the rest of the time we'd either go fishing or play baseball. There was no TV, didn't have radios, no TV until we got a TV when I think I was a freshman in high school. Finally got a TV, so you know that was quite an advancement. But other than that, there wasn't much else to do.
You said you would connect with the family next door.
We were very friendly because the family next door was the only family probably for another half a mile. And luckily for me, they had some boys that were my age, so we played baseball and fish together all the time. You know, we were lucky to have them because if they didn't, we didn't have a way to get downtown or nothing. Didn't have a bicycle or anything, so we'd have been pretty lonely if we didn't have them growing up. So we got along good with the neighbors.
Do you remember any of the names of the boys?
Oh yeah, it was Eddie and Joe Bizio. Yeah, we lived beside them for, 15, 20, 25 years till we all went into service. And then when they got out of service, they all came back to this area and we played softball together for a number of years after that. So they were lifelong friends. Yeah.
What was your favorite thing to do with them?
Probably play baseball. We played baseball from time we get done in the morning till dark, 7 days a week in the summer.
Talking about baseball, what would you say is your favorite position in baseball?
Pitcher. I was a pitcher. Yeah, all through high school and everything. I was a pitcher, so I liked that the best.
How fast would you?
I don't know. Back in those days, we didn't have meters to judge it, but it was. I could throw a pretty good fastball back then. Oh, I used to throw a fastball and a curve and what we call a slider in between. Fastball was over, curve and slider. It had about 3 pitches that we used to use. And I liked the fastball the best.
Was there any other neighbors that you would hang out with, or just that
No,
family?
those are, like I said, the other ones are about half a mile away and didn't have any other way to see them only when you went to school and the school bus picked us up. But back then, no, because we only had one school in town, and we had 3 grades in one room, so we didn't know anybody from any of the schools because we didn't have a way to meet them or see them. You knew the kids that when you went to school in the fall. A lot of the kids you wouldn't see again, and when they get out of school in the spring, you wouldn't see them again till fall because you didn't have any way of getting around.
How would you say schooling was for like 3 different grades in one room? How would you say that was?
I think they were excellent compared to today's schools. We had one teacher that would take 3 classes, complete discipline, probably learn more from those teachers than I have in any other time. But 100% of the kids in the school were disciplined. There's no back talk, and the parents back the teachers. And I think that's what's missing in the schools today. Because when one teacher, and I probably learn more from that teacher than any of the teachers that you've had when they have, they have an aide and all this stuff. But these teachers are worth their money. And you learn from them. Because, like I said, if you got disciplined, you got disciplined when you got home too. So they backed the teachers up, and I think education was in. Kids learned a heck of a lot more, and they learned a lot more. But they learned history and civics and all this stuff. They don't teach that anymore today in most of the schools, which is bad. It's a terrible thing. They don't. Like I said, I think the biggest thing in school that's missing is discipline. Okay. I think they need to go back and teach some of the old subjects, home ec, shop for the guys so they can learn something, teach them so they can balance a checkbook when they get out. Kids today can't even make change. I've seen them run a cash register, they can't even make change unless it's on their little computer and that stuff. They got to teach a lot of the basics for these kids to get out and start a life that don't go to college. And I think it finally came around because I remember right now they realize how important tech schools are. Back then, that nobody wanted to go to a tech school, But nowadays, how important they are, and they're just outshining the regular schools. Kids are going there and coming out making some very good money, and they're learning a career-long education, a job, And I think that they've got to teach more, like I said, the history and stuff, history and civics. They got to learn more about how local governments run and this stuff, and they don't teach that stuff anymore. And these kids, to me, that's a valuable resource for when they get out of high school. And a lot of these kids have no idea who the vice president is or the secretary of the state, or anything. They just have no knowledge because they don't bother teaching it. And like in local, they don't know who's the selectman, what their job is or anything, and it should be taught. They got to get back to the basics a lot. And I think that there's some of these the new math and all this stuff is some of the worst things I've ever seen in my life. And regular old math and all these subjects, they've got to go back to the basics so these kids can learn. It's something that they can learn to be useful for the rest of their lives,
Your favorite part of school?
Sports. That's what I went to school for. Played 4 sports, and that was the reason. Yeah, but no, and actually, I liked every class except probably English. I was not an English fan, but other than that, I used to like school. I was one of the rare ones that look forward to going to school every day. I played baseball, basketball, football, and track. And back then, we had one coach who taught all 4 sports. Nowadays, the schools there, they all have a coach and an assistant coach and everything. We had one coach that taught all 4. And he was their athletic director also. And he was an excellent man. I was fairly good in all sports, but I told you, I had a love of sports, so I would dedicate more time and energy to sports than anything else.
What do you remember from being a teenager?
Well, like I said, we what probably wouldn't be fun for anybody today, but just 3 or 4 or 5 of us kids, when I said we wanted to get downtown, we'd have to walk 2.5 miles downtown, and then we'd just hang around downtown, play baseball. Like I said, play baseball, or there wasn't much else to do. And once in a great while, we'd get this gentleman we used to if he could rake leaves for him once in a while. He'd take us to the movies. He had an old pickup truck. We'd get in the back and go to the drive-in movies maybe once or twice a summer, and that was quite an achievement for us to get done, you know. And then remember, when you get done that, you always had to walk 2.5 miles back home because you didn't have a ride. So you didn't do that a lot of times. But other than that, like I said, it was mostly stay at home and associate with your brothers and sisters and the neighbors.
Did you end up having any relationship in school?
Not till high school, you know, because again, you didn't see them, you know. And once we got in high school, we went to a regional school in Northfield, Pioneer Valley, and then you started to meet more girls and this stuff, you know. And then eventually later on, I think everybody would, you know, get a girlfriend in a junior and senior year. But until then, you just never saw that many.
Who was your first girlfriend? Right.
Geez, you know, I don't even remember her name. Let's see, that's 65 years ago. I don't remember her name now. True girlfriend. There was a lot of them you liked, you know, but true girlfriend, I don't actually remember who was.
How did you meet your wife?
Met my wife in high school. I was a junior and she was a senior. And she came from a big school in Chicopee, Mass. And came out to our little high school. And the first time I saw her, oh, wow, man, she's a good-looking girl, you know. So it took a little while because I was shy, you know, coming from a small town. And finally, after a while, asked her out, and she said, yep. And that was 65 years ago.
Do you remember what your first date was?
Yep, took her to Old Home Day in Warwick, Massachusetts. Old Home Day in August. Had a old square dancing. That's square dancing at town hall. That was a big thing of the year in Warwick. Everybody. That's when you saw everybody in town, because you spent the whole day and games and stuff, and then you had square dance and supper at night. Took her to that, you know, and that was I had to borrow my brother's car to take her because I didn't have a car. But yeah, and then after that, I finally bought a car, $50, and you know, I finally got a car, so I take her out after that. But that's how we met in high school. Yeah.
What was one of your favorite things to do with her?
Well, there wasn't much to do even back then. We'd go to the movies or bowling. Her mother was a professional bowler, so we used to go bowling a lot. You know, we really liked to do that, and hang around with just other couples our age in high school. You know, go to dances and stuff. But yeah, but we didn't have the opportunity or the money to do much of anything. You know, if you went out on a Friday night, you could get a couple of cheeseburgers and Cokes, and your budget was just about busted by the time you put gas in the car, so you didn't go to many things.
Did you end up getting a job during high school?
No, because there was no place to get a job. Growing up more, there was no businesses, didn't have transportation. Once in a great while, you'd have somebody that would hire you to rake leaves in the fall. You could maybe make a couple dollars here and there, but other than that, didn't have a chance to get a job anywhere. Would have loved to. Had a job, made some money, but, you know.
Since you said there wasn't many businesses around or like job opportunities, how did people like make a living for themselves?
Well, like my father, he had to travel from Warwick to Orange. The men who had cars they came to Orange or Athol to work, you know, but there was no businesses in Warwick. We only had 500 or 600 people. So 99% of the men traveled to surrounding towns to work. And back in those days, probably 99% of the households had one car. You know, I don't remember only 2 or 3 kids in my senior class that they had a car because, you know, there was usually one car per family. And so, like when my father went to work, even if I had a license, I didn't have a car. But, you know, so that but it wasn't just us. All the families were the same way. There just wasn't that ability to get anywhere.
What did you want to be when you were growing up?
Well, as I told my guidance counselor in high school, because they were hounded you to put in the paper what you were going to do after you graduated, and I told them, I kept saying, I do not know, and they would say, well, how come? I said, well, all I've ever done is go to school and play sports. I've never been in a factory, I've never been anywhere else. I do not know what I want to do because I have never had the chance to experience it. And I said, and I know I can't make a living playing sports, so when I get out there, I'll have to trial and error, and best thing to do is I went into service and found out when I came out. I went to college after that and got my career from that. But they kept, when they hound these kids, what do you want to do? Most kids have never done anything except go to school. So you really don't know you have no idea what any of these other jobs are like, so till you get out there and experience.
What did you end up doing in college? What was your major?
Well, I didn't go to college until I got out of the service. And I was in the service. I went and became a lab technician and a medic in the service. And when I came out, I decided I wanted to advance, so I got through the GI Bill and went to the Mount Wachusett Community College and got my associate degree down there. And then the state came out, you could take this test. And when I came out of the service, the Army schools are so good that I didn't even have to take a test to be certified as a lab technician because the state accepted it. And I wanted to go a step higher, and they had another test, I forgot what year it was, it became equal to a medical technologist. And I was working in a lab at the Athol hospital, so that advanced me as far as pay and everything else. The only scholarship I remember getting was for pitching. Yeah, I was very surprised because at night of graduation, they had never given that award. And evidently, from what I found out, there was this couple in Northfield, elderly couple, who loved baseball. And they would go to every one of our home games at Pioneer. And for some reason, they took a liking to me because I had a couple good seasons pitching. And I got a scholarship for pitching. I think it's the only time they ever gave it. But I was as surprised as anybody else because everybody goes, "I never heard of that one before." But I said, "Hey, it wasn't a big one, but it was a scholarship." Yeah.